Hi, I'm Amanda, and I'm here to talk to you today about an article I read in the Reading Teacher about increasing comprehension and vocabulary with Read Alouds. Okay, so let's get started. This article focuses on using Read Alouds in the classroom as a tool to increase listening comprehension and vocabulary acquisition. Strategically improving Read Alouds has been shown to increase student comprehension. Okay, so first the goal of the study. The author's goal was to design a framework for both informational and narrative strategies to teach comprehension during Read Alouds. The study details the curriculum used in their trials, the results of the trials, and then general strategies for teachers to use in their own classrooms. The study's authors used national and state standards to identify skills and strategies that were appropriate to use during the Read Alouds. So, previous research does show that text-based discussions may increase both the vocabulary acquisition and comprehension of the text, so the authors wanted to build on this previous research. The researchers did read aloud units of study on a particular theme, and they used both expository and narrative texts, so both fiction and informational texts. Lesson curriculum and the characteristics. Okay, so they structured lessons that were between 20 and 30 minutes. The researchers used student and teacher text-based discussions. So they had student discussions about the text in groups, and then they had teacher-based discussions with the students about the text. Text-based discussions allowed children to learn the new vocabulary before they have the reading skills necessary to acquire the vocabulary on their own. So it exposes them to the vocabulary. The teachers use prompting during discussion to practice the vocabulary, such as if they encounter the word livid in the text. Can you tell me about a time when you felt livid? So they exposed them and then they prompted them to use the vocabulary and work with it when they were doing the read aloud. The lessons mainly were 4 days of instruction and 1 extra day. And the extra day was to catch them up, to go over anything they didn't understand. If one day took particularly long, it was to give them a little bit of wiggle room, but the lesson units usually were 5 school days in total. Okay, so how did they choose the books that they were going to use for these read alouds? When selecting books, researchers paid attention to topic, the target audience, the length, the cost, the diversity in the book and of the students, availability, and possible connections to other texts within the grade level curriculum. So in other words, if they were reading Long Walk to Water in 7th grade, and that was a New York State module, they would pick another text about Africa to coincide with the Long Walk to Water story. Okay, so the vocabulary. When they selecting the vocabulary, researchers chose vocabulary that was functional or meaningful. It wasn't extraneous. The children would have many opportunities to use it, both in the classroom and in their real life. It was rich, varied, and interesting. The vocabulary was integral to the understanding of the story, so you needed to know it to get the main idea of the story that they were going to use. And there were high-frequency words. The children would encounter them often. The way the lessons were structured during the pre-reading time, first was a book the class went over. Is this an information book or a story book? For the narrative books, they did predictions about the story. They asked kids, what do you think is going to happen? For informational books or expository texts, they used a KWL chart. What do you know? What do you want to know? What did you learn? And then they pre-taught the vocabulary necessary to understand the book. During the reading. Okay, during the reading, they used the same framework to discuss the text for every book. So it didn't matter what book it was. If it was expository, it was KWL. If it was narrative, it was story elements. They used question-asking strategies. They encouraged students and they helped students make connections to the text. That was very important. Inferencing and self-monitoring, so they make inferences about the text and then they monitor how much they're learning, and then they just reinforce that vocabulary over and over again. After the reading. After the reading, they introduced, they reviewed, and they extended the vocabulary. So they're continually working on that vocabulary. And then they had students retell what they learned. So here are the results of the study. Read alouds with explicit comprehension instruction and active engaging discussions about the text can promote comprehension and vocabulary. So if you explicitly teach the comprehension instruction before you begin read alouds and then have active discussions with your students, it does promote more comprehension and vocabulary. In narrative text, students in read aloud classrooms had more detailed retellings than students not in read aloud classrooms. So that was really important. So students did remember more in their retellings. And students in the read aloud classrooms cited more text-based details in their retelling, so they remembered more of the details of whatever they were reading. And that's it. It was a really great study. I hope you all look at it. Have a wonderful day.